All right, everybody, and we are back today. We're going to talk about the last of these processes of memory. So we talked about encoding, we talked about storage, now we're going to talk about retrieval. So retrieval is when you get the memory out from where it is stored, right? So retrieval, also return, like the memory returns. When you retrieve something, like a dog retrieves it, right? It brings it back to you. So retrieval is when the memory comes back, okay? And we are going to look at what principles help and hurt your retrieval. So here's the thing. Ready? Go. Write down the names of the 7 dwarfs, as many as you can come up with. I'm going to give you 20 seconds. Okay, stop. How many did you come up with? 7, 2, 1, 0? Now try this. I want you to find the names of the 7 dwarfs. I'll give you about 15 seconds. Go. Did you get them, right? So if you look at this, it's much easier to pick them out of here. So you need 7 of them. So we have Doc, we have Dopey, we have Sneezy, we have Grumpy, we have Bashful, we have Cheerful, and Happy, right? So those are the 7 dwarfs, I believe, but maybe I'm wrong. But I at least got 6 out of 7 that time. When I did this the first time, I think I got Doc. That's the only one. Okay, so retrieval, right? There's 2 types that I just kind of demonstrated for you, right? The first type is what you did at the end. It's called recognition. So this is a technique for retrieving memories in which you must identify a stimuli as being previously presented. You have to recognize the answer in front of you, okay? This is like a multiple choice test. You only have to identify something you've already learned, right? You have to find the answer. So you're recognizing what's there, okay? This is very different than what I had you do in the beginning of the 7 dwarf test, which is recall. So I asked you to retrieve specific memories all on your own, right? No information, no help, no list, no anything, okay? This is kind of like an essay test. You have to recall the memories entirely from your own memory with no help or cues, right? So obviously, recognition is much easier than recall, which is why most students prefer multiple choice tests, because you only have to recognize the answer, not come up with it, okay? So 2 basic types of retrieval: recalling it all on your own, recognizing it from a list, a group, a picture, and so on. Okay, so retrieval cues, right? There are things in your environment that can actually cue up or bring about certain memories. So, for example, have you ever been walking down the street or walking in a mall and you smell something and it like triggers a memory in your brain and you're like, oh, that smells like so-and-so. Oh, that reminds me of so-and-so. I have my high school boyfriend, he smelled like Carmex. Right, so whenever I smell Carmex, I always think of my high school boyfriend, right? Maybe certain words trigger certain things for you, or certain pictures trigger certain things for you, and they actually bring memories back into your consciousness. Okay. Another way to do this is something called priming. So I can actually activate certain memories by telling you certain things beforehand. So for example, if I say certain words, it might make more memories or might make you remember other things, right? So for an example, right here, try this, okay? How do you pronounce the word spelled by the letters S-H-O-P? How do you pronounce that? S-H-O-P. Okay. Now, what do you do when you come to a green light? Did any of you say stop? Right? So the reason you're more likely to say stop than go, even though you know you go at a green light, is because I made you say S-H-O-P, which is shop, which kind of primes or activates the stop. Right? So that's an example of priming, how you can basically tell somebody something or make them look at something that might bring about a certain memory. Another example of how cues from your environment can affect you is something called deja vu, right? So you have these cues from a current situation. You walk into a classroom and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I think I've been here before, even though you haven't. Or, oh, I'm remembering this. I think I've done this. I've experienced this, okay? So Here's the deal. Here's how this works. Your brain actually makes a memory. Like I said, makes a connection of every single thing that you do. So you walk into a classroom and you have a connection for what a classroom looks like based on other classrooms you've been in. So every once in a while, those cues get screwed up and your brain thinks you're going into something you've done before. So for example, you walk into your science class and it looks just like your social studies class and you're like, oh, I've been here before, even though you haven't. Now, obviously, that's a very basic example, but it's like your brain gets confused and thinks you've been there before when you haven't, and so you get this feeling, this sensation that I've done this before. That's deja vu. All right, last little bit on retrieval, okay? There's a couple of different things that could impact or affect your retrieval of information. So the first one is context dependent. They found that you actually recall information better when you're in the exact same environment that you learned it. So here's the thing, you want to sit in the same seat every day because it can help you, right? The study they did with this, they actually had students learn information. They had to learn different words underwater and then on land. That's this chart over here. Okay, you see? All right, and the students who learned it underwater and then were tested on land did worse than the students who learned it underwater and tested underwater. So you remember it better in the same environment. If you learned underwater, you remember better underwater. If you learned on land, you remember better on land, which seems weird because who remembers things underwater? But apparently it depends where you learn it. It's where you're going to remember it. Mood dependent, right? So recalling information when you're in the same mood is much easier. If you learn something when you're happy, it's easier to remember when you're happy. If something happened when you were sad, the information is going to come back to you when you were sad. And another reason why this is important is for test taking. If when you're studying, you're more calm, relaxed, or you're just working on things and all of a sudden you get in the test and you become anxious, nervous, right? It's going to be harder to recall the information you studied when you were more relaxed. So you want to either find a way to calm yourself down or to have the same sort of mood when you learn something as when you remember it. All right. And that's it for today, my AP Psychos. And remember, psychology is flippin' awesome.